How is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years? This is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. Had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. Of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump? Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
We have some clips to look at of the vice presidential debate where I believe a very stark contrast was made between Walz being relatable, down to earth, looking for solutions, looking to the future, while Vance was robotic feeling, full of lies, and dodging simple questions that he could not answer. So I've got a few of these lined up, starting with the biggest non-answer of the night.
This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
Yeah, this is the end of the debate as far as I'm concerned. This should be completely politically disqualifying. It shows MAGA does not live in reality. He says, I'm focused on the future, and then instantly tries to change the subject to something else from 2020 also, by the way, which just shows how rattled he was and just how he did not want to answer the question and tried to pivot as hard as he could, because you either say no to this and it shows how detached from reality you are, or you say yes and Trump disowns you as his lackey. You want a VP who will tell the president what he needs to hear, not what he wants to hear, and JD Vance just showed he's incapable of doing that. The Biden administration, as to what he's saying, alerted Facebook of possible COVID misinformation, which Facebook then went within their own jurisdiction to enact policies they felt was right on what they wanted to do. This is also regular from the government around emergencies, but if you want to talk about censorship, especially social media censorship, Trump has attacked media and censored more people in media than any president ever in history. He has launched the biggest attacks on free speech, including going after Section 230.
He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Walz continues to show how he's really good at this. The choice before you is an administration that works for you, works for workers, works for unions, LGBTQ, minority groups, democracy, or an administration that works for elites, works for themselves, works for Donald Trump, and it couldn't have been any clearer on this stage. We had JD Vance, who has changed every single position he's ever had politically, went back on clear statements he's made about Donald Trump as far or as recent as 2020 after Trump's presidency, just for hopes to be part of his administration, when he realized there was no getting rid of him, because being his yes man is the only way to be next to him as vice president, against Tim Walz, who speaks what he believes, speaks from the heart, is highly relatable, and has, instead of just following what Kamala says, directly influenced Kamala into adopting policies like paid family leave that he has already passed himself as governor.
There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today.
Last time we let geography determine people's rights, specifically their right to bodily autonomy, we got slavery in the South, which was upheld and defended by today's Republicans. And the last line is the deal closer here. Had Amber Thurman been in a non-restrictive state, she would be alive. It's that simple. It's because of the Trump abortion bans in these states that she died. And this is the case for thousands of women, not just her. The idea that we're leaving it to the states is a false premise anyway. Leaving it to the states, to the voters in those states, would be doing ballot referendums, which in states that have done it, even in deep red states with Republican legislators, the right to abortion has won every single time it's been on the ballot. Women's freedom has won every single time it's been on the ballot. So instead, you have states like Georgia and Texas refusing to put it on their ballot, effectively leaving it up to MAGA, not to the states and those within them.
I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years, and the last year as president? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
And again, Tim Walz, really good at this. To support Trump, you actually have to believe that scientists are lying, economists are lying, legal experts are lying, courts are lying, historians are lying. And it's funny because all of MAGA will confidently say this and stand on it as if it's a justifiable or defendable position. They would walk up to a neurosurgeon and try and correct him on how to do brain surgery. Tim Walz is right. If you need a procedure done, listen to the professionals, not to Trump. If you want to come to a factual understanding of something, listen to the professionals. MAGA Republicans could be walking home and see their house on fire, and they'd be like, oh my God, we have to call 911. My house is on fire. And Trump would drive by and say, your house isn't on fire. It's fine for you to go inside. And they would just walk inside, because his word is testimony to them. And it's also pretty hard hitting from Walz at the end here. The wealthy need to pay their fair share. Instead, you have them going through these loopholes and ways around doing that they exercise regularly, and Donald Trump himself regularly brags about this, all while the working class is footing the bill for him. But we're supposed to believe that he's for the working class. Harris Walz wants the wealthy to pay their fair share and to use that money to fund things to help the working class, to fund child tax credits, to fund small business tax credits, to fund earned income tax credits, to fund tax credits directly to affect those making less than $400,000 a year, while Trump Vance wants less taxes for the rich and more loopholes for those making over $400,000 a year, so those making less can have their taxes raised.
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
And this is all Trump wants to do about immigration, so he can have an issue to run on that he's strong on. All the while, it's kind of backfired on him as Harris stomped on Trump in the immigration portion of their debate, and Walz just crushed Vance here as well, perfectly pointing out how they want to demonize it instead of solve it. They want to misrepresent numbers. They want to kill good border bills to have talking points. And Vance did nothing but lie when it was his turn to talk about this. He said 291,000 migrant children are missing under Biden-Harris. That's not true in any regard. 291,000 migrant children since 2019, so 2 years of Trump as well, have not been issued orders to show up in court. That's all. I specifies this doesn't mean lost. And again, Vance and Trump try to paint this as only under Biden, which is a blatant lie, and they're also not lost. There's even more good moments, but I do think we'll wrap up here to not make the video too long, and I think you can still clearly see with these clips the debate was not even close. Walz crushed Vance. To Vance's credit, though, he is better than Trump. I mean, he didn't say that migrants were eating pets, so it's kind of a low bar to pass, but hey, you know, he did it.